Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jaeger Anderson, and today we are going to be talking about how I have developed a new process for retouching people using Capture One and Photoshop. So before we dive into our process for retouching skin, I wanted to explain to you how I've sort of set up this masterclass, if you will. Instead of producing a video that is, say, 1 hour to 2 hours in length, I've decided to break it up into a series of videos so that way, if you're watching this, you can jump to whatever part you think is most relevant for your retouching process. I think you'll find it a little more accessible, a little easier to digest the information in that way. I hope you find it helpful. I think it'll make it easier for me as well when I'm editing these videos. The first step in our process when I'm working on an image of a person, a portrait, a boudoir shoot, a fashion shoot, is I like to take that image and I bring it into Capture One. I prefer Capture One to Lightroom because I think it does a better job handling skin tones, and that's why I prefer it. It's also kind of the industry standard for professionals. And I like to know what people are using, and if I ever work with a particular client, I want to know how to use the most relevant tools that they're using for a particular photo shoot. Let's take a look at my laptop, and we're going to dive into the first steps. All right, so we're going to go over to our brush tool, and we're going to create a new layer in our Capture One, and we're just going to call this Skin. And what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in here, and we're going to, all right, that looks good. We're going to go to our brush tool. We're going to right click. I'm just going to look at it. Nice and soft, medium flow, sizes a little big. We're going to bring that down. And that looks good. I'm going to hit the M key, make sure we have our masks on, and that way I can see where I'm actually painting in. I'm going to zoom in here just to get a look at the skin. Nice. The eyes are nice and sharp. That's good. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to color over anywhere where there is skin. If there's skin, I'm going to paint over it with this mask and create a new mask tool. This does look a little funny when you have the mask on, visible like this, but it does make it a lot easier than trying to guess where you've painted and where you haven't painted. And again, we're just focusing on skin right now. We're trying to avoid, I'm going to try to avoid the makeup as much as possible. It doesn't really matter because her makeup is black. Her eye makeup is black, and so that's not really going to be affected by color because it's black. But we want to avoid the eyes, we want to avoid the lips, we just want to focus on just the facial features right now and making sure that we get that all taken care of. And this doesn't have to be a perfect mask, this is just a rough sketch. But we do want to avoid the eyes, the eyebrows, the mouth. And as you can see, I'm also avoiding the hair as much as possible. I'm just trying to get the skin. Get this side of that hair. In fact, it's probably okay if I go over that hair now that I'm thinking about it because I'm probably going to retouch that out. So not a big deal if I cover that hair. Make my brush a little smaller. Zoom in a bit. Now on my Mac, now that I'm really getting in here and editing, sounds like it's an airplane about to take off. Apologies for that. Oops. If you do find that you've gone a little bit too overboard or you've clipped into the lips, you just hit the E key and you can use the eraser tool and make sure that you're not getting the lips. Let's go back to our brush tool. Get this as close as possible to the lips without going in them. All right, let's zoom out and make sure I'm not missing anything. Well, missing some of the eye over here. Got to get that. And this cheek. Good time to relax. It's a nice rainy day here. Love doing retouching on a rainy day. Feels very relaxing. All right, let's zoom out. All right, looking very red. Oops, I don't know why I'm using that. I have my keyboard here. Brought this keyboard in here so that I don't have to reach over on my laptop. All right, that's looking good. Toggle the M key there. Looking good, looking good. I believe I want to keep this all in the same layer. That's what I'm going to do. Toggle my mask. Make my brush a little bigger so I can cover more ground. Speed up the process. And so what we're going to do is we're creating this mask on the skin. And the reason why we're doing that is because it will allow us to change the skin tones and create uniformity between the different tones in the skin. So a large part of the retouching process is trying to create consistency across the image. You know, it could be consistency of color, consistency of texture, and I find this sort of pre-prep process of coloring in and using the uniformity tool in Capture One to be a lot more effective and helpful prior to trying to do frequency separation entirely in Photoshop. When you take the extra time to do this, it makes it a lot easier and the results are a lot more pleasing, in my opinion. Also, it's okay if we get a little bit on the blanket here because the blanket is just basically pure white, so it doesn't have any yellows or reds in it. So if we change that slightly, it's not going to affect the blanket. Remember, we're just trying to affect the skin tone here, and the skin tones are made up of yellows and reds. And also, it's okay if we go over on the lingerie because it's black and it's not going to be affected by color. So, no big deal there. There is some color in the tattoo, but I'm okay if that. The tattoo is not a focal point of this image, and so if the colors are changed a little bit, not a big deal. I may even remove that tattoo at some point in this process. I'm not sure yet, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. There is some, there is some color in the sheets here, so I want to be careful not to get on there. But yeah, that's essentially it. Let's zoom in a little bit. Make this a little smaller, make our brush a little smaller so we can get nice close up to the edge. And again, because this is pure white, it's okay if if I cut into it a little bit. All right, that looks very strange, but don't worry, that's just because we have our mask on. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Get the rest of this hand, da-da-da-da-da. Not a huge deal over here, but we'll paint in just a little bit where we can. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going for as good as we can get it. The face is the main thing we want to focus on. All right. So there's our image with the mask on it, and we can toggle the M key and turn it off. So what we've done is we've created a mask in Capture One, similar to something that you would do in Photoshop. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our color adjustment layer, and we're going to use a tool called Uniformity to create just that, uniformity of color on the skin tones within our image. So let's do that right now. So go into our color editor. We already have it. I'm just going to bring it up here to make it a little easier. Boop. And I'm going to click the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to select kind of a neutral area of skin. And then under Uniformity, I'm just going to drag this and see what happens. Right? So you can see what it's done if I zoom in a little bit. It's created sort of an even golden tone. It selected that color, and it's created uniformity. It's kind of desaturated the reds, it's evened out the yellows, and it's done a really nice job of just subtly changing it. And you can see if I increase the saturation here, where that's affecting it. So let's go back into our color editor. Here we go. Actually, let's go here. And we can shift the hue here. So if we find that the skin is a little too pink or a little bit too green, we can change that here. I think it was fine where it was. We don't want to do anything too crazy. We just want to create some uniformity. So if I toggle this, if I bring this down, you can see that there is some sort of patchiness, particularly like in the arms with the color and stuff, right? There's some pinks and stuff like that. So we can create that uniformity to sort of help with that process. It's very subtle, right? And this is the hue amount. I think I want to add a little bit more redness to the skin. I I don't think I want to necessarily affect the saturation. This is the lightness, right? Zoom out some. And we've just created something simple, and I can go to our layers here. And we've created sort of a neutral palette of color for the skin. We've neutralized the reds and the discrepancies in the skin tone. And this will make our process a lot easier, and it'll make the image a lot more pleasing once we retouch it in its final state. So I hope you found that video interesting. This is the first step of our boudoir retouching workflow playlist. This is just the simple masking and color uniformity tool in Capture One before we dive into Photoshop. If you found this helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. And let me know if you enjoy Capture One or if you prefer to use Lightroom. I find Capture One to be very helpful, so let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one.